Well, hello and welcome to the channel. My name's Johnny and you're watching Hillbilly Modeling. So this is going to be like part 3. Well, not like, but it is part 3 of our Trumpeter LCM 3 U.S. Navy Vehicle Landing Craft in 1/72 scale. And we are going to be doing the painting. So we're going to get everything painted up and weathered and scratched and all that good stuff. And so we got a lot to do. So let's go ahead and jump down to the bench and get started on it.
Okay, so we need to go ahead and get everything ready for painting. So we have our ramp just taped on. So we're going to go ahead and remove that tape and get our ramp off there. And we didn't glue the superstructure there around the bridge, so that'll be easier for painting. Now we got a lot of PE here, so we're going to go ahead and prime that up with this Mr. Metal Primer. And it's just a light coat. That's supposed to help the paint stick. I don't expect to be handling these PE parts, so hopefully we're not going to be scraping anything off here. So we are going to coat all of these PE parts with this Mr. Metal Primer here. Now we do have this contact area here where that superstructure slides over this elevated deck section where the helm is. So we're going to go ahead and mask that up so that it doesn't accumulate a lot of paint and stuff, which is going to affect our fit because we did have a little trouble fitting that. So yeah, we're going to protect that so that we don't have to worry about the fit. And of course, I like to use the reversed rolled tape method here to hold all the small parts. And of course, our gun shields, we're just going to use cocktail sticks or toothpicks for those. So we're going to prime everything with Vallejo's gray primer here. Now it's a water-based acrylic, so it should go on nicely. And as you can see here, it's already primed up. The good thing about using the gray primer on a gray vessel is that if you kind of mess up with some of your coverage, it's still gray. So here we are primed up, and we're ready to move on to the next step. So now if we take a look at our box here on the side of the box, this is a really nice color scheme. I really like that. And you can see the darker color, the more gray, dark gray there. Well, it's not really a dark gray. It's more like a medium gray. But where the water line would have been. And then, of course, the decks are a little bit darker too, which really helps with the contrast here. And we're talking about an all gray vessel, so as much variation as we can get in the color, the better off we're going to be. So we're going to do some pre-shading, and we're going to use this Vallejo Panzer Gray, German Panzer Gray, one of my favorite pre-shading colors here. Is gray actually a color? Well, anyway, we're going to mix it up for our airbrush, and of course that will depend upon how you paint and your airbrush and orifice size and all that wonderful stuff. So you just got to kind of know what to do with it. So we're going to come in and start with pre-shading the deck. And you don't have to get up close around all the little attachments and stuff on here. Basically, this is going to give us kind of that worn look. So we're going to do all of that basket weave tread or anti-skid tread there, that kind of pre-shading there. And we'll continue on to the lower deck area. And we're also going to go down the side of the vessel here and pre-shade all of that. And so we got these little walkways that go forward and aft. So we'll get those. And we don't want to forget about the cargo area. So giving it just a kind of a light mottled kind of coat here. We're just not really paying any particular attention to any one thing. Leave a little bit of that light gray shining through there in some of those areas, and right up next to the edge there. So we'll get that pre-shaded as well. And next, we are going to pre-shade the sides here right at those ribs. So those stiffener ribs there, we're going to just give it a little shot either side of it there. That'll help give us some shadow and some depth. Make the model look less like a toy and more like the real thing. At least that's our intent here. So pre-shading can really help us here to give it, just that extra depth. Now, one of the saving graces here on this vessel is it does not have a distinctive water line. So all we're doing now is putting in that shaded area there for where the water would have worn away the paint, as well as those weld lines. So those weld lines look like they need a little help there, kind of make them more interesting and kind of bring them out after we get it painted. And then we will go ahead and model up the bottom. Just a nice little squiggly all over the place there. I know you guys like my painting terms. Also, now we do need to get the bottom of our ramp here to match up to the hull. We don't want that to kind of be a mismatch there. So that fading right there is right at the hinge area there. And we're just going to go ahead and kind of shade in a little bit of that bow too. Now, of course, you don't want to miss these cleat areas on the ramp where the vehicles will be coming on and off of the vessel. So we're going to go ahead and pre-shade that. And there we go with our pre-shading. I know it looks a mess, but that's okay. I mean, it's all going to blend in really nice when we get to our main color. And you can see we have all of that taken care of. And we just want to double check and make sure that our pre-shading matches up there from our ramp to the front of the craft. So next up, we're going to use this gray here. It's a good shade of gray. It's a good base to start with, and I did use a little bit of thinner to keep the paint from sticking to the bottom of the jar so bad, and it'll help with mixing. So we're going to use this nautical blue here to give it a slightly blue tint. I really like the color that was on the side of the box there, which has got a little bit of that blue. So we're going to try to tint this. And so we're going to mix it up here, and yeah, probably need a little bit more blue there. So we'll go ahead and add a little bit more blue. Kind of want it just to be just a little bit bluer than it is. I don't think that first little drop of blue that we put in there got us where we wanted to be. So we've got our color mixed up, and I think it's a little bit dark. So we're going to add this pale gray to it and kind of lighten that color up a little bit there, if I can get it unstopped. And we'll just add a little bit. I don't know what the mixing ratios are. I just kind of mix it until it looks right for me. And yeah, okay. So now we're mixing it up again here, and yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. So let's take a look and compare it to the previous. So you can see here, that was the original mixture there, and we've lightened it up. We still got the blue in there, so that's going to be a good color for the vessel. Remember when you're mixing your paint that you need to keep in mind the scale of the craft. If you get it too dark, a lot of your details are not going to show up. So now we're going to take and lightly go over the entire craft with our paint mixture here. And as you can see, we just put it on in real light coats. We don't want to totally wash out all of our pre-shading there because that we spent a little time there putting that pre-shading on, so we kind of want that to show through. And we'll just keep building up our layers until we get the look that we want. Easy peasy. So we're going to be using this bronze here. Now this is a metallic craft paint, and it is water-based just like all the others. And I did mix it up for the airbrush, but I decided these are the only two parts that I'm actually painting with this, and maybe the head on the fire extinguisher. So we're just going to go ahead and brush that on. Probably need a couple of coats. So now this is from a previous project, our last one. And it's my fuel can color, which I'm going to use for the ammo cans on our weapons here. Now, these weapons are painted in the Panzer Dark Gray, which is a nearly black looking color. So we're just going to paint the cans up with this real dark green. And when it comes to the actual can tray, we're going to use the same color that we painted the landing craft in, and that's going to be our real light blue gray here. So we'll go ahead and paint those up. Now we have our two machine guns to do. Next up is these grips. So we're just going to use this brown color here for that, and just brush that on and get those wooden handles painted. Now we can move on to our fire extinguisher. So this is craft paint again, and this is the True Red that we're using to paint the bottle portion of our fire extinguisher. And we're just going to brush that on. Now the bracket that holds it to our landing craft is going to be the same color as the craft. So we're going to leave that gray, blue gray, blue gray. And we're going to use the same bronze color that we painted our props with to paint the head on our fire extinguisher. It'll make it a lot more interesting, I think. And then we're going to use the same Panzer Gray that we use in our pre-shading and for the machine guns. We'll be painting the hose and the nozzle on our fire extinguisher with that. And as you can see there, that's our little fire extinguisher. And it looks nice. It's going to look really good, I think, on the vessel. So here we have our 6 bumpers that hang down on the 3 on each side of our landing craft. And I painted it this dark brown here just to give it a base color. And now we're going to do some dry brushing with this flat tan. Now this is a tester's enamel, which is much, much easier to dry brush. So for you guys that don't know anything about dry brushing, I know most of you do, but you just dip your brush into the paint and you unload the majority of the paint from the brush. And then we're just catching all the high spots on the part that we're going to dry brush. And so we're just going to go over it there. It's kind of a rope mesh kind of arrangement that they have here. So we're just going to highlight these. So that looks pretty good. Might need to go over it again. Well, we'll let this dry and see what it looks like when it's completely dry. So next up we have these awful life preservers. And I'm just holding it down here, and I did paint it white. I just sprayed them white, both sides. And I'm using my cutting mat here to determine the quarters because we're going to have to paint this. But first I'm going to put a little bit of masking tape on them here to protect it from my tweezers because I don't want to be scraping the paint off because then we'd have to go back and touch that up. So we're just going to protect the surface there. And with our self-clamping tweezers and the surface protected, now we've got something to hold on to. So we're going to go back to our True Red here. Now this is that craft paint that we're using. And we are going to paint the opposite quarters of this life preserver here. And we're just going to follow our guidelines there. And you don't have to be really precise or anything because we're actually going to cover that seam up. We just need to let these dry first. and then we can move on. So this is medium CA glue, which is what we're going to be using. And we sanded off in the previous video the molded in ropes, which looked terrible. So we kind of need to put that back on to our life preservers. So with a tan thread that we're using here, which I think is going to be much more into scale than the original moldings, we're just going to super glue it at 4 points around our life preserver. So kind of the ideal here is to make sure that we get that thread to kind of pucker a little bit, give us a slight loop from one attachment point to the other. That's so that when you throw this life preserver out to somebody that needs it, they've got something else to hang on to. And as you can see here, kind of the ideal is kind of like a round square that I'm going for here. And we'll just get that pressed down into place. And just make sure that you keep a little bit of loop there on the preserver there. So as you can see, that's kind of what I'm going for there. That's kind of my rounded off square look with our thread. And we'll just trim the excess off. Now we're going to put a binder on. And here we're just going to use some black nylon thread here, or it's a nylon polyester thread, which is really good because it doesn't have any of those little fuzzies. And if you've dealt with thread before, you know that you want to stay away from the fuzzy stuff. So I've chosen a side of our life preserver to be the back side that you're not going to see. And we're just going to secure the end of the black thread to it. And then we're going to make ourselves like 3 wraps here, just securing it as we go. And we're just going to put the CA glue, if I can think what I'm doing. Yeah, so the CA glue is just going to go right on the back side there. And as you can see, by binding it this way, we're actually covering up the seam from the red paint to the white paint, so we have a nice clean look there. And it helps to press down on your thread a little bit so that it will actually grab the CA glue. And as you can see, that's what we're going for. So we're going to do 4 of these for each life preserver and trim off the excess. There we go. And that looks pretty good. I like the look of it, and it's so much better than the original molded part. And here we are, like magic. All of our life preservers are done, and all the tails from our wrapping there, our binder, is all on the back side, which is going to be up against the hull of the landing craft. So you're not going to see that, so we don't have to worry about that. So yeah, those look good. I think it's going to be a great addition to our vessel. So here we are using the same Panzer Gray that we did our pre-shading, and we painted our weapons and the fire extinguisher hose. Well, we're going to use it kind of as a light wash here for all of our dials on our instrument panel there. So that will just flow right around, and there are small needle gauge needle details that are molded into these, and at 148 scale, I mean not 148, 172 scale. At 172 scale, as you can imagine, they are quite small, so it's nice that detail is actually there. So we're going to be doing some more dry brushing. Now this is Tester's enamel, flat steel, and we're going to be using that to kind of show some worn metal look here on all of the cleats that are welded to the bottom of the hull there for the for traction, so that when you pull vehicles on and off of the vessel, they've got something to grip onto, because you can imagine that deck's going to be wet, and it might be an issue trying to offload, especially if you're in a hurry to get off the vessel. You don't want to be spinning your wheels, so these cleats would have all the paint rubbed off of them. And then we're going to also go over and dry brush the high traffic areas on our decks here with the same flat steel. Now you can use silver. That's kind of a choice, color choice, or whatever you have. It's going to work fine. So next up, we do need to tie some loops here on our boat bumpers. that's what I'm calling them. Now that the enamel paint has dried, so I'm using a wooden dowel so that I can get all of these thread loops the exact same length. So by tying it around that dowel, and just tie yourself a double knot, and then you can just pull it off of the dowel. Okay, you're supposed to be able to pull it off. There it is. I got a little splinter or something there. It's hanging me up. And then we can just trim the tails. Just don't trim the tails too close to your knot or it'll come untied. Now, it's not going to be a problem later on because we are going to actually super glue these into place later. But we do want to check and make sure that everything looks good. You know that I really believe in test fitting everything, and it's kind of important here too. So next up, we're going to use some pale gray here. Now this is one of the colors that we used in our mixing of our paint color here, the blue gray that we've got on, or the gray blue. I haven't decided which way that's supposed to be. But what we're doing is we're going in and we are just putting some fine scratches down the side of the vessel. As you know, these craft got used quite a bit, and they got up against a lot of things. And some of those 18, 19, and 20-year-old boat captains weren't that cautious, so they run into a lot of stuff. So with that done, we can go ahead and use this X22. Now this is a gloss clear, and this is a Tamiya paint. Now when you thin this, you need to use the X20A to thin it. It does not react well with water. And we give everything a good clear gloss coat for our decals. And these are water slide decals that we're putting on. And I am going to use the micro set to help secure it to the painted surface there. And we're just going to slide our decal off into place. Now, the one that I've chosen is the one that's on the box, and that's the P77. And the A is separate, so we'll have to put the A on after we get the boat number on. And yeah, I'm having a little trouble here, but we'll get it lined up. You can refloat it with a little bit of micro set around the edges. If it does kind of stick a little bit. It's been a while since I had a decal that actually just stuck in place and I couldn't move it at all. So you got to watch out for that because it can happen. So with our boat number on, we are going to measure, and we have 2 millimeters below that deck area there. Now that's kind of important because we want to make sure that all the other decals that we put on, and we've only got basically 6 to do. Like I say, the A's are separate, and then on that decal sheet there is also B, C, and D, and then a bunch of other numbers and stuff. So you can choose what craft that you're going to be doing. Here we're going to use the Alpha, and I'm just going to use my straight edge ruler here to make sure that everything is lined up. Now, we do have a diamond that goes on the side of the vessel, and I'm not sure, but I think that this is a center of gravity marker or placard or whatever that goes on. So it's kind of important when you go to lift the vehicle out of the water. Now once our decals are all dry, we're going to go ahead and seal them in with the same gloss clear. And here we go with panel liner. Now, some people hate panel liner. I mean, I'm kind of mixed on it, but it does do an excellent job of helping to bring in those false shadows and making the little bitty items that would just kind of fall into the background here a little bit more pronounced. Now, it will dull up considerably, you know, once it dries. Now, inevitably, you're going to have some little areas where you've got too much panel liner, and so we're just going to clean that up with a little bit of Tester's enamel thinner because the panel liner is an enamel product. And using a cotton swab or a Q-tip, whichever you prefer, it makes that cleanup quite easy. And you can always go in with a small brush that's clean with just a very, very light amount of enamel thinner on it. So while we're waiting for all that to dry, we can start some assembly here. We're going to get rid of that toothpick that we had on our fire extinguisher. And using CA glue, I'm going to go ahead and attach the fire extinguisher. And there is a little rectangular slot here for it to go into. And we'll just press that into place. Hopefully it'll be straight. There we go. And there's our fire extinguisher. Now, you have the option of mounting the door either in the open or closed position. I've decided to go with it open. So a little bit of CA glue there on the hinge, and we can go ahead and attach that. And there we go. Our superstructure, for what it is all complete. So, time to attach our props, and I'm going to use the Tamiya thick cement for that. That gives us more working time, and it doesn't really care about the painted surface all that much. So it holds really good. So I'm just going to use a toothpick to put the cement right on the mounting point there, and then we can just slide those into place. And of course we have 2 props to put on, and they go on just like you would expect. Now I did have to open the hole up just a little bit with a drill. I think it was mostly filled with paint. So, but it does fit. Now, we need to turn our attention to the rope here. The thread that Trumpeter has in the kit is way out of scale, and I don't particularly like the color anyway. So I'm going to use the black nylon thread or polyester nylon thread to replace that. Now this is the cable for our ramp, and I think this smaller thread is going to do much better. Now we do have a small issue, and I know you can't really see it. I can barely see it myself, but the thread has to go behind the bottom one. So it's over the top of the top pulley, and then it's got to go behind the bottom pulley and out across the bottom. Only there's too much plastic in the way, so we're going to have to drill that out. Luckily, there's that slot in the front, and I end up drilling it out. I use 2 different drills. This one right here is the 0.9 millimeter, which should be give us ample enough room for our thread to go through. So with that little modification done, we can go ahead and coat everything with our matte varnish. Now this is going to seal in all of our panel liner and give us a nice flat dull coat. And once our flat coat dries, we're going to use the gloss clear again. Now this is kind of thin because I haven't mixed for my airbrush, but I'm just going to use a toothpick here, and we're just going to attempt to drop it in. Doesn't really want to do it, but we'll get it. All of our gauges. So give it kind of a gloss coat there so that it'll be a little bit shiny there, like glass. And next up, of course, we need to put the ship's wheel into place, and then we can remove that masking tape where we were protecting that surface. And it's time now we can go ahead and cement the superstructure onto the helm deck there, or the, what do you call it? Bridge. on the bridge. Now we need to thread that thread through those pulleys so that we can attach it to our ramp. So we need to do that before we put the ramp onto the craft, because we kind of need access to that that slot that's in the front of it there. And it's not a difficult thing. I'm really glad that we went ahead and drilled that out previously so that the thread would fit up underneath that that lower pulley. And then we need to thread it around the ramp winch drum as well. Now we have 2 of these to do, so you make sure that you put them both on before you attach the ramp. So with those threaded into place, we can go ahead and attach the ramp. And I think the To Me Extra Thin will be just fine to hold our ramp into place. A little bit of CA glue on the attachment point for the ramp cable. And we can go ahead and attach that. And just give it a minute to set up. And then we can go ahead and stretch it down right where it needs to be. I do put a little bit of CA glue there on that top pulley, because we don't want it slipping off the side later on for whatever reason. I mean, you may brush it with your finger or something, and you don't want it to pop off that pulley. So a little bit of CA glue there is going to make sure that it's secure. Now, it's not a working ramp, so it's not that big of a deal. And of course, we go back to our winch drum there, and we can attach the cable there, which allows us to pull it tight along the side of the hull there. And we'll just cut the excess off. If I can get my scissors in it, there we go. And then we have our cover. Slip our cover into place, and it is a nice little friction fit. It'll hold itself right where it needs to be, and we'll just touch that with a little bit of To Me Extra Thin. So we're going to use some AK Interactive rust streaking here. Now this is an enamel product, and since we're putting an enamel product over top of a acrylic base, which is the flat matte acrylic that we sprayed everything with, we can confidently use this enamel right on top of that. And the first thing that we're going to address will be these discharge pipes here for the bilges. And of course, there's going to be a lot of sludge and rust and stuff that's down in the belly of the vessel, so that's going to get pumped overside. And we can come back in with a little bit of enamel thinner to be blending these streaks. Now, something that I see a lot, that some guys, when they're building their boats, they don't pay attention to the water line. Now, on this craft, it would be lifted out of the water quite a bit. However, you're going to have a fade back at the water line where the stuff's being pumped overboard. Now, once the vessel comes out of the water, you're still going to have some streaks that's going to continue on down below what the natural water line would be on the side of the vessel. But now on a regular ship, you're probably not going to have these rust streaks below the water line. So it kind of makes sense that you would stop it there on a regular vessel. Now, of course, salt water and steel don't get along very well, so we're going to have some rust on our vessel. No matter how well it's taken care of, it's going to have rust. So we're just going to go in and put rust here and there and wherever. So I'm thinking that these access panels here, these plates, is a good spot because water and spray will be coming over the side of the vessel and collecting around the edges there and running down off the bottom. Now, I also did a little bit of rust around the belly plates there. So, yeah, that looks pretty good. That AK Interactive Rust Streaks works really well. You don't need to use very much, though. Just put a little dot and then come back in and blend it and shape it where you want. So we're going to go around and put more rust because I'm kind of getting in the mood of rusting it up. And it looks nice, I think. So wherever there's a seam or intermittently along a weld joint or something like that, you could expect some paint to pop off and a little bit of corrosion. So a little bit of streaking here and there. I think it really gives the model more life. So we'll go ahead and do some of that around the entire vessel. Now that it's time to attach our boat bumpers here, a little bit of CA glue on the back side of, okay, it's not a cleat, it's not a davit. What is it? I forgot. Oh, gosh. You guys are going to kill me. But anyway, we're securing the thread with the CA glue, and then I'm going to use that thick Tamiya cement on the back side because we actually need to pull these down because the thread will actually want to pull it up because these items are so light. So in order to give it a weighted look, that's what we're going to do. And then, of course, a little bit of CA glue there to hold our life preservers into place. So we can go ahead and put those on the hooks inside the hold. And we have 4 of these to install. And I'm just kind of doing them kind of random-like because, you know, I'm sure the Navy has a regulation on how this is supposed to be hung. But we're going to give it a little bit of a random look there. So now we can attach our gun shields to the guns, and it is a tight fit going over that barrel, but it will go down. And we're just going to use CA glue there on the actual swivel mount for the 50 cal, and attach these. And you need to pay close attention to this because if you let that CA glue set up and it's crooked, you're going to have to break it loose and, and re-glue it. So next up, we can go ahead and mount our 50 caliber machine guns. And I'm using CA glue for that as well. So we need to get it right and get everything lined up before that medium strength CA glue sets up. You do have a little bit of time to play with it, but not a lot. And here we're just checking our alignment. I think everything looks ship shape. we're in good shape here. It looks good. All right, so what do we need to have next? Oh yes, our stand. So as you know, we made a stand out of wood, which I stained, and I put some satin clear coat on it. It needs to be rubbed down again, but we're not going to wait for that. We're just going to go ahead and put our stand right here on the turntable and set our landing craft right on it there. So it just sits right on those little skids that we cut and glued into place. And yeah, once I get it lined up, it ought to look just fine. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And so here we are. We're all finished with the boat. The landing craft looks pretty good, I think. Of course, you guys are going to be the judge of that. Now, there were some fit issues. Mainly, when we went to insert the cargo hold here into the vessel, we had some fit issues. It wasn't notched properly, and some fitting tabs, locator tabs that we had to adjust. And then, of course, that superstructure. We had to thin out the front and the rear of it to get those to fit into place, which was a little bit annoying, but that was okay. I mean, we got it in the end anyway. And, yeah, I guess on a scale from 1 to 10, I would rate this kit probably about a 7. It does look good. We had that hinge detail that didn't work out for us. That would have been nice if we could have had a working ramp. But other than that, it's a good-looking boat. And I think Trumpeter did a really good job with the detail. The 50 caliber machine guns are really highly detailed. Those came out nice. And the fire extinguisher, other than that hose that they provided in the kit, which we threw out, and well, actually we didn't throw it out. We put it in a spare parts kit, spare parts box, along with that thread that they provided with it, which I felt was way out of scale, and it would have never have fit where it needed to go. So yeah, we replaced that stuff. And yeah, the life preservers, those weren't very well molded to begin with, so we sanded off the rope detail that they did attempt at and made our own. So I think that looks pretty good. But you guys are the judge of that, and let me know what you think, and leave me a comment. I read all and answer all your comments. So that's it for the build. I really appreciate you guys watching, and special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys I keep videoing my builds and putting them out here for you to see and see what kind of problems I run into. And if you are not a subscriber, I hope today I earned your subscription. And don't forget to give the video a like. It's greatly appreciated. So until next time, guys, you stay safe.